Hello, Blender people. Today I'm going to show you how to create some kind of falling leaf particle system. And the reason why I'm doing this is because it was very difficult for me at the start to set something up that looks nice. And that's just because in particle systems there's a lot of settings you can change and a lot of things that will affect your actual simulation as well. So we're going to get started at that. And the reason why we're doing a leaf tutorial is because it is fall right now. I'm looking out of the window, everything is yellow and brown and falling off trees and stuff. So it may be very nice to include it in a scene somewhere where some leaves are falling through your camera or something else. It's up to you. Let's get started. Alright, so we're gonna start off by, of course, deleting our trusty friend, the cube. And I'm gonna enable some keys for you guys so you can follow nicely. Right, so first things first, we're gonna add an emitter object, so something that our leaves can actually fall out of. So I'm gonna use a plane right now, but if you're, for example, want those leaves to fall out of a tree, then you can create an object inside of your tree that matches the rough outlines of your tree and use that as an emitter object, or you can just use a sphere and hide it somewhere in the tree. Of course, remember to hide your emitter object if you're doing that, otherwise you will see a sphere in the middle of your tree. And I can imagine that's not something you want. So I'm gonna use a plane for this one because usually when I create it, I don't want an actual tree in my scene. I just have a scene and imagine that there's a tree, a large tree that is outside of the camera view that is shedding its leaves. So those are falling through the scene in a windy manner. And that's what we're gonna be creating. Right, so I'm gonna move this up a little bit and I'm just gonna change the scale to match somewhat of a real life or real sized kind of tree. So a tree, I'm not sure what the size of a tree is, but it's quite big, right? So I'm gonna set this at like, let's see, maybe 15 meters, I guess. Nah, let's just leave it at 10 or something like that. Maybe 7, doesn't really matter. We'll change the size of the leaves anyway. So let's move this up a little bit and let's just right away add a particle system. And as you know, there are two types. There's an emitter and hair. Hair is something you use for solid things, so things that don't have to animate or don't have to fall out of your objects. Emitter is what you use if you actually want to shoot things out of your object. And that's the best wording that I can find for that. So if I now play this animation, you can see that there are little balls falling out of our plane. So that's what we're going to be working with. This is the starting point of the emitter particle system. Right, so the first options you see is in the emission tab, and you can decrease that number. I'm going to set this to about 300. And something important to look at as well is the lifetime and the frame start and end. So how long do you want your emitter to work? And I'm going to set this at 500 for now, and the lifetime at 500 as well. Lifetime is how long your leaves will live before they die and disappear from your scene. So if you have your leaves falling out of the camera view, you can try to set your lifetime to when they are no longer in camera view, so those leaves won't stay in your scene for too long. That will, of course, increase the performance required on your system. So I'm gonna set this to 500 for now. And let's go ahead and actually create the particle object first now, right? So we're gonna be needing some leaves instead of these balls. And let's set the end time of our animation to 500 as well. And let's create some leaves. And there's very easy ways to do this. And I'm just gonna create a plane. And let's just scale this down a little bit. What's the size of a leaf? Is like maybe 10 centimeters or something. Let's just set this to like 0.15, I guess. So this is gonna be our leaf. And let's go to render view because we're gonna be creating that leaf in a very easy way. And set this to GPU and cycles. And let's see, all we need actually is just a leaf kind of texture. So what we're gonna do is we go to Google and we're just gonna search for a leaf, right? And we want to have a nice fall leaf. So maybe this is like a maple leaf. I'm just gonna save this, save image as, downloads, and save this as a leaf. I already saved some leaves before as well. So save this as like a fall leaf 1. Oh, not sure what's happening. And let's see if we can find some more. And make sure that if you find leaves that they have a white background or a black background, it doesn't really matter. We can We can work with both of them in Blender. So save this image as well, and save it just full leaf the second, and maybe one more. So they all have to, of course, match the same tree in this case. So I'm searching for the same leaves pretty much. Let's see, maybe this one. That is fine. I'm gonna save this image as well, and fall leaf 3. All right, so the the last 2 leaves saved as a web file, which is always shitty. So what I'm gonna do instead is just live hack this stuff, and I'm just gonna use the snipping tool that comes with Windows to just create a nice snippet of this leaf, just like that. And I'm just gonna save this now. Let's see, save, and let's save this as leaf all leaf 2 JPEG. And let's do the same for the previous one, if I can even find that again. Let's see, was it this one? Let's do this one actually. I think it was this one. So I'm just gonna open that snippet tool back up, hit on new, and I'm just gonna create a nice snippet of this leaf. Something like that. Right, save that, and full leaf 3 JPEG. There we go. It doesn't have to be a PNG. We're gonna be working with colors and color ramps anyway. So I'm gonna open up a new shading tab by setting this to shader editor. I'm gonna hit home. Actually, let's create new first. And there it is already. And I'm gonna select this principled BSDF node. And let's go to edit, preferences, and go to add-ons and make sure that node wrangler is turned on. And if it isn't, you just check this little box and you're done. Remember to save your preferences like that. And select your principled node, press Ctrl T, and you will have a mapping set of nodes. And now we want an image texture. Let's open one of our leaves. Leaf, all leaf. Let's go with 1 first. There we go. And you can see that the leaf is already nicely portrayed onto our plane, but we still have this white area around it. And to fix that, we need to turn this plane, so this image, into an alpha map. And we can do that very easily. So let's connect that color to the alpha first. And let's press Shift A and search for a color ramp. And swipe that in between. And I'm gonna Control Shift left click on that color ramp to see what it looks like. And what we actually wanna do is have this leaf as completely black, and the outline, so everything that's not leaf, has to be completely white, right? So we've got a very hard contrast map. So I'm just gonna move those things together, so closer together, so we have one black part and the other part just white. And let's try to make this as nice as possible without having too much of those weird edges. And it's bound to happen anyway, because we of course have not got the highest res texture anyway, but it's fine because those leaves are going to be quite small and they're going to be moving through the camera with some motion blur as well, so it's fine. Let's make sure that we've got this spots a little bit out of the way, something like that. And it doesn't really matter if we've got some white spots in our leaf. Leaf is sometimes transparent anyway. You can look through some leaves. Let's say a caterpillar ate some parts out of it. It doesn't really matter, right? It's nature, it's organic, it's random. And let's see how this looks now. So go to your principled, Control Shift left click on it. And you can now see that we can only see the white part, and we only want to see the invert of this. So we can just search for an invert node. So there we go. Swipe that in between, and you can now see what it looks like. So we can tweak it a little bit, so we get some less of that wide area around. And it does mean we lose a little bit of our leaf, but like I said, that's completely fine. I think something like that will do the trick. All right, so this is quite flat right now. I want to add some depth in this plane, in this leaf, right? So I'm gonna go to edit mode, and I'm gonna add some edge loops with Control R and scrolling up, and do it for the other way around as well. Left click to apply, and I'm just gonna enable, let's see, where is it? Enable this button right there, proportional editing, and I'm just gonna select one of my vertices and move that up, and scroll up or down until you see like that circle, which basically means the size of your proportional edit tool, right? So what it's gonna move and what it isn't gonna move. So I'm just gonna change some of these vertices of my plane so our leaf is not completely flat, not completely two-dimensional, something like this. And let's also make sure that it's not this glossy, right? So if I move from the side where the light actually hits, it is quite glossy, and I want this roughness to be just a little bit higher, like that. Now right mouse, shade auto smooth, and there we go. This is our first leaf. Now let's add that second, shift A, mesh plane, and let's change that scale and move it out of our first plane. And I'm just gonna copy the material first. So select your plane, hold shift, select your leaf, Ctrl L, link materials. There we go, it's now the same material, but we want this to be a different leaf. So first things first, let's make sure to make this a new material. Click that button. And now let's just open our second leaf texture. So search for your leaf. Where is it? Leaf 2, JPEG. And it's already looking beautiful because we already have those nodes set up, right? So let's see if we can get rid of that white line a little bit more. And I think we can. Like that. So just play around with your color ramp. And that's looking nice. So let's edit this plane as well with adding some edge loops. There we go. And just be random. That's the fun part about modeling nature. You can be random because nature is random. There's no way a leaf is completely flat or completely curved or has a specific dimension. I mean, it's completely random. And that's nice. Alright, so just duplicate it one more time for our third leaf. And let's copy the material once again and open our third leaf. So fall leaf 3. There we go. Beautiful. Alright, so you can even play around with some other settings like the subsurface maybe if you want some light to pass through. I'm gonna leave that off for now because it will increase the render time just a little bit. So maybe we can enable that at the last point. And let's add a little bit of a different vibe to this leaf. So let's just move some other points around. Just like that. And you can imagine that the more different kind of leaves you have, the more realistic this is gonna look. Because right now we're gonna be working with 3 different leaves, but obviously in real life each leaf is different than the other. So the more different versions you make, of course, the more realistic it's gonna look. And right now I'm gonna select all of those by holding shift, press M, new collection, and call this leaves. So this is gonna be our particle system. I'm gonna press Ctrl S to save my file, and I'm gonna save this as fall leaves falling. Beautiful. Right, so this is what we need for now. So I'm gonna press numpad 0, and I'm just gonna set up my camera view to be somewhere beneath this plane that's gonna be emitting those leaves. Something like that will be fine. So we don't see the actual emitter, but we do see them falling down. Right, so let's go to our plane. And I'm gonna go back to solid view and we're gonna be working on those leaves. So let's just play our simulation for a little bit so we can see what comes out of it. And let's go to the particle system and I'm gonna go to render and I'm gonna render this as a collection, and the collection is going to be leaves. Beautiful. And we're gonna pick a random leaf so it doesn't just pick all of them at once. And let's just play this again and see if we have the size right. We don't. So easy part is we can just change that right here in the scale. So we already pretty much set the leaf size as the actual size, like 15 centimeters. So we can set the scale at 1, but we can set the randomize a little bit higher. So we've got some random leaf size as well. Right, that's looking great. So we've got some leaves falling down. And what I'm gonna do is just increase the number a little bit. So maybe 600. Like that, and let's see them. Beautiful, right? So we've got some leaves falling, but they are all flat. They're all falling flat to the floor, and that's what we're gonna be working on now. So we've got some leaves, and we want to change the rotation and the randomness a little bit, right? Because leaves will be falling in the wind and stuff. So what we're gonna do is, first of all, we're gonna go to, let's see, we have to enable advanced. Actually, we don't. Advanced is in the hair system. In emission, the rotation is available from the start. If you are in hair and you want to have random rotation, you have a little setting called advanced at the top that you have to check in order to get this rotation tab. In emitter, it will be available. So just check that. And we, of course, want to have some randomized rotation and also some randomized phase. So just set that at like a value that you're comfortable with. It doesn't really matter that much, but the more, of course, you increase this, the more random your rotations will be. So I think something like this will be fine. And important, we have to select dynamic. Otherwise, our wind and our turbulence won't affect rotation of our leaves. And that's exactly what we want, to resemble that real life falling leaf, right? So check this little box and just play your animation a few times to see what happens. So right now we've got our planes falling down in a random manner, but the rotation doesn't really change. It stays the same and it falls quite quickly. So what we're gonna be doing first is we're gonna change the weight of those leaves. So right now we've got a physics tab right there, and our mass is starting at 1 kilograms, and that's the regular mass. So you may be thinking, what is the mass of a leaf? But it doesn't matter. It really doesn't. If you set this at the mass of a leaf, then your vortexes, so your force fields later on, like the wind, they will affect your object so much that it's going to be very difficult to control. So I'm going to set this at like a medium way. So a compromise, I'm going to set this at 0.1. So there's a very heavy leaf, but we're doing that so we can control the simulation a little bit better. So if we now play this, you can see nothing really changes. But I'm gonna now scroll all the way down to our field weights, and I'm just gonna decrease this gravity force a little bit to like 0.7 maybe. Let's see how fast they now fall. So they already fall a little bit slower, and we can set this even lower to about how fast we want our leaf to fall. I think we have to increase this later on once we add like the wind and stuff, because the wind is obviously going to be playing around with the falling speed as well. So, excuse me. So we're going to be playing around with those settings later on. So right now we've got the basic stuff set up quite nicely. But we want some wind. We want those leaves to be randomized, not falling straight down. So that's exactly what we're going to be doing now. But they already look quite nice. So how do we add forces to our particle systems? Well, it's very easy. You can press Shift A, go to your force field, and first things first, let's add a wind. And this wind, the arrow points to where the wind will go. So right now it will blow straight up. I'm just going to move this up a little bit. It doesn't matter the location. The wind will affect your entire scene. And I'm going to rotate this to, let's say, somewhere somewhat like that. So it blows to the side and a little bit down as well. And let's go to that physics properties of that force field, and let's change those settings a little bit. I'm going to increase the strength a little bit, and let's make sure that it affects the location and rotation. Very important. Otherwise, it won't really affect your rotation of the leaves, which is what we want, and the location, of course, as well. So let's see what that does. It should be blowing our leaves nicely to the left already. Beautiful. All right. Right now, we don't have any randomized movements of those leaves. They just blow all in the same direction at the same speed with the same kind of fixed rotation. So we're going to be changing that. And you may be thinking, we have a noise setting right here that will fix all of our problems. But it really doesn't. If you add a noise amount, it will only make your leaves wiggle. Like if I up this, and let's see, it will add a little bit of a wiggle to our leaves, and it isn't really that visible even right now. But it certainly doesn't like add some random movement to our leaves, only in those jagged little movements, right? So you will see some leaves jagged, and they are being weird, and that's just what we want, right? So we're not going to be doing it with a noise amount. We're going to be doing it with another force field. So press Shift A, and we're going to go to force field, and we're going to add a turbulence, because a turbulence is basically a random force that is being applied to your scene, right? So imagine how you will think of a noisy wind. That's going to be what it's adding. So I'm just going to move this to where our leaves are falling to, somewhere right there, and I'm going to change some settings. So this turbulence will be a larger one for some randomized winds that I just explained. And let's just set the strength to like 4. And the size to, I want the size to be quite large, maybe 5. And let's see how this works right now. So you can already see it adds a lot of random movement in our leaves. And that's just beautiful, right? So what I do want to change is maybe have this falling even slower. So we can even change our particle settings. So select your particles. And we can either decrease that mass, but then it will be affected more with our force field, so we don't want that. So what I'm gonna do instead is just change this gravity to be a little bit lower. So 0.05 perhaps. Let's see. That's looking way better already. Beautiful. And you can even change the wind direction a little bit, and maybe even decrease that strength a little bit to 1 maybe. And this already looks pretty nice, right? Pretty decent. But what I want to do still is add some more randomization. It is still quite fixed, and I want some like short movements as well. So I'm just gonna add another force field. So Shift A, force field, turbulence. And this is gonna be our smaller movements, and just move that up a little bit. And we're gonna set this strength to like 0.8. Now let's do 2 actually. We want it to be quite strong, but we want the size to be smaller. So the size is gonna be maybe 0.8. That's gonna be nice. And we are actually gonna be adding some flow as well. So you can see that the flow will convert the effector force into airflow velocity. So we actually get some speed results. So leaves will speed up and slow down as we go. And I'm gonna set this to like 3. 3 would probably work. Let's go back and see how this goes. So you can see that the leaves are now going faster, but a lot slower as well at some points. And most of all, it's gonna make our simulation look way smoother in my opinion. So you can actually see those movements of those leaves. Some are going up, that are being blown up. Some are going to the side, and you can see that the rotation changes very slowly with those leaves. And I just love the way this looks, because in animations you don't want leaves crushing down through your scene like rain. You want them to be nice and slow and fluent with the wind, right? So nice and organic. And this is exactly what it does. It does go up a little bit too much in my opinion right now. So I'm just gonna go to my particle settings, and I'm just gonna change, let's see, the gravity a little bit more. So let's try 0.1, so those leaves do fall down a little bit more. So the gravity has a little bit more effect on it. And let's see, maybe even more, 0.4 maybe. So now they fall down a bit more. There will still be some leaves that move up according to that turbulence, but that is completely fine. Maybe 0.6. Let's see. Let's see how it changes. I don't mind those leaves falling up. They won't make it to the camera anyway. So I really like this. We've got very smooth and organic motions. And you can see those leaves actually turn with the wind, right? The rotation changes depending on what way they're moving and how they're affected. And let's go to our camera view. And let's just see how it looks from this perspective. And that's looking nice. Looking very nice. And I'm gonna reset the simulation a few times, and we can always play around with the seed of those turbulence fields, right, to get a little bit of a different outcome. And let's just up the seed one level for both of them. There we go. And we can see that there are some leaves just falling straight down in one way or another. And let's see why that is. All right, so that may just be the camera view that we're in right now. Just some unlucky view we changed. So I'm just gonna move this around a little bit. Let's see. And we may just have to increase the sizes of those turbulence fields a little bit, because we've got quite a large plane, right? So if I decrease this and make it more in the direction of our turbulence field, it will affect them a little bit better, in my opinion. So make sure that the size of your plane will match the size of those turbulence fields and stuff as well. So this is looking amazing. So let's go into render view and see what it looks like. So set this to auto smooth, and let's select our leaves there right at the bottom and shade them smooth as well. Right mouse, shade smooth, and just play the simulation and see how it looks. So of course we've got some weird lining going on right now. We can change that very easily. And you can see that we've got some amazing falling leaves going on. One thing is we don't really have depth, so our camera is quite far away. I want to move this so it is right inside of this particle system. So we have some leaves right there at the front and some in the back as well. So, oh yeah, this is beautiful. And we can select our particle systems when we're quite satisfied with the way it looks, and we can just turn that off, so the emitter object. But I'm gonna add some more leaves first. So I'm gonna change the number to like double, maybe 1200. And I'm gonna play this again and see how this looks. So leaves are falling through the scene very nicely. Looks like wind affects them, blows them up, and brings them through the scene. Oh yeah, this is looking nice. Alright, so I'm gonna press Ctrl B and just make this a render window. I'm gonna select my plane, and I'm gonna go to the render tab, and I'm gonna disable show emitter. And you can do the same for the viewport tab. Where is it? Viewport display, you can hide the emitter as well, and just play your simulation. And now the plane won't be visible, so if I click away, we will only see those leaves flowing through our scene beautifully. And right now we only have one light source, so 1 point light. I'm gonna delete that. I'm going to go to my world settings, and I'm gonna change this little yellow color button to environment texture. And I'm gonna open up an HDRI. And you can download those for free. Yes, you can download free HDRIs from the website polyhaven.com. Go to Assets, HDRIs, and you can download any of those HDRIs. So let's go to Outdoor, for example. And we can, if we want some beautiful background, let's see, maybe some fall. This is a nice one. Golf course sunrise. Looks like a full background to me. I'm gonna download that one. It's gonna be downloading 4K by default. You can change that there if you need a larger quality. And then you have an HDRI that will basically light up your scene and add some reflections. So I'm gonna go back to Blender. I'm gonna go to downloads, and I already forgot. There it is, golf course sunrise. Open that up, and it will add that to the scene. Beautiful. And you can change the rotation and stuff, everything you need. By first of all, let's set those settings, sampling to manual. The reason I'm doing this is because that way we can just change those settings a little bit easier, and it won't take that much on your system to, for example, rotate this environment around. I'm gonna go to world in my material settings. I'm gonna select my HDRI and press Ctrl T. So those node wrangler will work on any texture. And we can now change the Z rotation. So we can rotate our background scene around a little bit, and just look at how that looks. So this is already looking beautiful. We got some nice lighting on our leaves and stuff, maybe some backlighting. So even some light will shine through some of those broken leaves, right? And that's just nice. That's just looking very nice. And you can always change the material of that leaf. And let's see if we can find a nice rotation. I think something like that was already nice. So let's leave it at that. And just play your scenes. You've got some leaves flowing nicely through your scene, very slowly. And if you want to hide this background, I can imagine that you want to. You can just go to your render settings, go to film, and hit transparent. So there you go. You've got some nice leaves. I'm gonna add a backplane real quick. Shift A, mesh plane. Move that up a little bit and rotate it around the x-axis. Just move that to the back. And let's scale that up. And I'm just doing this for the render purpose, right? So we've got something in the background. And I'm gonna change this to a color. So go to Object, New, and let's just change this to like a nice, well, let's just make it maybe orange. I think that looks like nice in the render. A fall color, at least that's what I'm looking for. Something like that. Actually, let's change that a little bit. Maybe some blue for the skies. Yeah, that's looking nice. Beautiful. And now if we just play this, we have some leaves falling beautifully through our scene. And you can imagine how you can use this for any kind of chill vibe in your scene. And you can use the exact same method when you want to, for example, use it for snow. All you need to do is change some of those settings. For example, snow will fall a little bit quicker, I guess. And you can just change that in your gravity settings, or in your turbulence or wind settings. And you can of course change the objects themselves. So instead of using leaves, you can change that to snow. So snow is like this cool shape that you can actually use very nicely. So if we search for like a snow snow texture, I guess, snow texture. And you can just download, what is it called? Like one snow icon, maybe. Yeah, something like that. But then of course a real looking one. You can just change it to something like that. So recreate that in Blender, or just add this as like like an object, and that will just change it from leaves to snow. So anything you want to be falling down, you can do the same method as we use for those leaves. So just find an image texture and use that. So last step is to render this out. So select your camera, and I'm gonna add some depth of field. So enable that, and you will get some nice looking blurry leaves at the foreground. And you can change the distance to closer or to further away, depending on where you actually want your focus point to be, in the foreground or in the background. I think it looks quite alright, somewhere in the middle. And we can change that f-stop to be a little bit lower if we want some more blur going on and things that are out of focus. Oh yeah, this is looking great. I really like some depth of field. Right, now we can add some motion blur as well, but I feel like that's just gonna be reducing the view of those leaves. Yeah, it will. I'm not gonna be using a motion blur right now. Maybe we can change the distance a little bit so it's getting a little bit closer or further away, maybe. Yeah, like that. And let's just change the f-stop to like 1.4, just like that. And I'm just gonna render this out, and then I'll show you the results. Right, so the animation is done, and this is what the results are. So I feel like we did a pretty good job here. We got some nice smooth motions of those leaves, and they actually look like they're falling from a tree somewhere up there. So they flow nicely, they rotate nicely in the wind as well, so they follow the behavior of those wind and turbulence fields. So that is pretty nice, and I rendered it out in about, I think, 5 minutes at the max, with a very low sample amount, about 32, with denoise enabled. So it was very fast to render out an animation of about 5 or 6 seconds. So I really hope you enjoyed this video and that you can use it for something that you want, whether that is gonna be falling leaves, falling snow, or anything else that can fall down, pretty much. So yeah, have a nice day, and I already wish you a Merry Christmas in advance. And if you like this video, if it helped you out, please leave a like or a comment or subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.